Okay, so now we're going to be blessed with Tom for our sermon today. And if you notice the name of the sermon, Dr. Pellow's Funny Money, you're going to have to pay attention so that you can understand how that feeds into his sermon, okay? God bless you, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you for helping me today.
Yes.
Thank you for helping Gloria. You know, my dad always had a saying, many hands make light work. Unfortunately, in this church, we have many hands, and that helps make the burden light. I had an uncle. He was married to my grandmother's baby sister. She had a bunch of names because by the time she was born, her parents had given up on any names and they let the kids name her. And they all picked out different names, so they put them all down. Mamie, Geraldine, Winifred, see if I remember all. Mary, Jennifer, Mamie, Geraldine, Winifred, Vera, Godfrey, and later Pellow. All those names. My grandmother said she picked out Vera because they lived in Vera, which became Veradale in Spokane Valley, and they thought she should have that name because she was the first white baby born in Vera after it was called Vera. And so that goes back a few years, back to 1909. Anyway, she was sent down to Loma Linda, California, because she wanted to be a registered nurse. And while she was there, she met a California boy, Ray Pellow. And he studied medicine at the College of Medical Evangelists, it was called then. And he came up to Spokane and he served his internship at the Deaconess Hospital, and in 1939 he opened his practice in Spokane. From 1939 until 1960 he carried on that practice, and his sister and his brother joined him in that practice. His brother was also a physician, and his sister ran the office, paid the bills, made the appointments, and gave them their allowances. And I don't know, did anyone know Dr. Ray Pellow from Spokane, Washington? I see a couple of hands. And from 1960 until 1965, he was on the faculty at Montemorelos University in Mexico, teaching medicine from 1965 until 1977. He joined his practice in Spokane again, and then he retired. The story I'm going to tell you is from about 1969, 1970 era. His daughter became a registered nurse, and she met a fellow from Cheney, Washington, and they had married, and he went through medical school, graduating in 1967 from Loma Linda University. And in 1968, late 1968, they flew to Uganda in Africa to serve in the field hospital there. And so my Uncle Ray and his wife Mamie decided they wanted to visit. Not only did they want to see their daughter, but they wanted to see their grandson. And while he was there, he helped at the hospital. And this man came in needing an examination, and he was quite taken with my uncle. And he reached into his billfold and he pulled out 2 $100 bills. And $100 bills, you didn't see so many of them in that time of day as you do now. Nowadays it's quite common. Everybody has a $100 bill sometime or another. Anyway, this man said, in Africa, one of the countries has purchased the same printing press the U.S. Mint uses, and they print money, but it's not valid. And I'm just not sure about these 2 $100 bills that I have. Could you please take them back to America with you? And if they're good, you can mail them back to me. And if they're not good, well, just turn them in. And so he had the dilemma. What do I do with these $100 bills? Well, about a short block from his office is the bank, and he took them down to the bank. And the bank teller says, "Oh, Dr. Pellow, yeah, we'll put them right in your account. We'll deposit them." And he said, "Well, I'm not so sure about them." And he told the story of how he had acquired them. And the bank teller said, "Well, they look fine to me." And he still wasn't quite sure. So he got to thinking, and he took them back. And he asked his sister, who knew everything. And she said, "Well, we have a patient that works for the FBI. Why don't we call him?" And within 20 minutes, that FBI agent was there in the doctor's office. And they showed him the money. And he took one quick look, and he says, "These are counterfeit." And he wanted to know all about it. And he says, "Yes, there's a government in Africa that prints money. And they do quite a good job." And my uncle commented to the FBI agent, "Well, you must study a lot of counterfeit money to know it." And the FBI says, "No, we never examine counterfeit money at all. We don't make a practice because it's all different." He says, "But the real money, we know all about it. There's a lot of features that a lot of people don't know about American money. But we know most of them. And if we see any of them missing, any at all, we know it's counterfeit." And my uncle said, "Well, I'd like to use those for an example in my Sabbath school class." And the FBI says, "No, they're getting turned in. They're being sent to the Treasury Department as of now." And he put them in an envelope and carried them off down to the FBI office. And that poor man in Africa was out $200. I'm glad to be a Seventh-day Adventist. And I believe that Jesus is coming again soon. And when his disciples asked him, "What is the sign of your coming? What is the sign of the last day?" What is the first thing Jesus said to them? What is the first thing? I got good Bible students here. What's the first thing he said to them? He said, "Be sure that no man deceives you." Deceives. That's the same thing as counterfeit, isn't it? there's a lot of things that are meant to deceive us. And so many times, people want to hear just smooth things. Oh, it's very easy. Oh, it's very easy. Jesus paid it all, and we just go along for the ride. Well, you know, Jesus expects us to not be deceived. And I don't want to insult anyone or make anyone feel poorly. But I'd rather have you know the truth than to be comfortable. And I'm going to read, I don't often read from Great Controversy, but I'm going to do that today. And I'm going to be reading from page 193. Satan is constantly seeking to deceive men and lead them to call sin righteousness and righteousness sin. Does that sound like it's out of the newspaper? How successful has been his work. How often censure and reproach are cast upon God's faithful servants, because they will stand fearlessly in defense of the truth. Men who are but agents of Satan are praised and flattered and even looked upon as martyrs, while those who should be respected and sustained for their fidelity to God are left to stand alone under suspicion and distrust. Counterfeit holiness, spurious sanctification, is still doing its work of deception. Under various forms, it exhibits the same spirit as in the days of Martin Luther. Diverting minds from the scriptures and leading men to follow their own feelings and impressions rather than to yield obedience to the law of God. This is one of Satan's most successful devices to cast reproach upon purity and truth. Fearlessly did Luther defend the gospel from the attacks which came from every quarter. The word of God proved itself a weapon mighty in every conflict. And Martin Luther kind of changed the world in his time. You notice this flag over here that we display in our sanctuary. It's displayed in Protestant churches the world around. It's not the Seventh-day Adventist flag. We call it the Christian flag. And it represents everyone who is true to Christ. And I, for one, am glad that we have it in our sanctuary, that we're not afraid to show our allegiance. Let's turn to Matthew. Matthew 7. Matthew 7:15. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. Deception. Some people make a living on deception. How many of you would believe every word a used car salesman told you about the car he's showing you? Everybody's snickering, but nobody trusts him. But how many of you would believe every word that the licensed pharmacist was telling you about the medication that he had just handed you a bottle of?
More than the doctor.
You believe him, don't you? We're trained to trust him. But you know, there's a lot of people in between those two examples. Yes, we have instinct. Yes, we have ideas about folks. But it's dangerous to follow our impressions. It's what's in the Bible. I have a friend that's a licensed pilot, and he's a medical doctor. And he got his instrument rating. And he was flying along, he felt just fine. But there was a big, thick fog. And he was thinking about things like you do. And he looked at the instrument panel. And the instrument panel showed him that he was flying sideways instead of the way you're supposed to do. But he felt fine. But he turned the plane so that the instrument showed that he was flying the way he was supposed to. But he felt like he was flying sideways. And he felt strange until he flew out of the fog and everything was right with the word, and then he felt fine. But should he have decided that the instrument wasn't working right because he felt like he was flying sideways? God has given us an instrument. And he's given us a good mind. Let us not be deceived. Mark, the Gospel according to Mark, chapter 13. And let's turn to verse 19. For in those days shall be affliction, such as was not from the beginning of the creation which God created unto this time, neither shall be. And except that the Lord had shortened those days, no flesh should be saved. But for the elect's sake, whom he hath chosen, he hath shortened the days. And if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or he is there, believe him not. For false Christs and false prophets shall rise and shall show signs and wonders to seduce, if it were possible, even the elect. But take ye heed, behold, I have foretold you all things. And then he goes on about the tribulation, and the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give light. The stars of heaven shall fall. I always like to mention that stars of heaven shall fall, because we're told in 1833 that happened. And I remember being a little boy listening to my grandmother. Did you like to listen to your grandparents' stories? I love to listen to my grandparents' stories. I were interested. My grandmother grew up on the farm at the lumber sawmill and lumber yard. My grandfather, his dad, fought in the Civil War. And my grandmother's grandfather was the first Seventh-day Adventist in my family. And he told my grandmother about that night the stars fell. He was 12 years old in 1833. And he told her, she listened to her grandpa. She passed that story, so I have it second hand. I had it from someone who had it firsthand. And they thought, surely it was the end of the world that night. I believe Christ is coming. And it's sooner than we may think. And I pray we're all there. But there's some things that deceive many of us. And I'm going to turn back to Great Controversy, chapter 34, and page 552. The doctrine of man's consciousness in death, especially the belief that spirits of the dead return to minister to the living, has prepared the way for modern spiritualism. If the dead are admitted to the presence of God and holy angels, and privileged with knowledge far exceeding what they before possessed, why should they not return to the earth to enlighten and instruct the living? If, as taught by popular theologians, spirits of the dead are hovering about their friends on earth, why should they not be permitted to communicate with them, to warn them against evil, or to comfort them in sorrow? How can those who believe in man's consciousness in death reject what comes to them as divine light communicated by glorified spirits? Here is a channel regarded as sacred through which Satan works for the accomplishment of his purposes. The fallen angels who do his bidding appear as messengers from the spirit world while professing to be the living into communication with the dead. The prince of evil exercises his bewitching influence upon their minds. He has power to bring before men the appearance of their departed friends. The counterfeit is perfect. The familiar look, the words, the tone is reproduced with marvelous distinctness. Many are comforted with the assurance that their loved ones are enjoying a bliss of heaven, and without suspicion of danger, they give ear to seducing spirits and doctrines devils. When they have been led to believe that the dead actually return to communicate with them, Satan causes those to appear who went into the grave unprepared. They claim to be happy in heaven and even to occupy exalted positions there. And thus the error is widely taught that no difference is made between the righteous and the wicked. That pretended visitations from the world of spirits sometimes utter cautions and warnings which prove to be correct. Then as confidence is gained, they present doctrines that directly undermine faith in the Scriptures. With an appearance of deep interest in the well-being of their friends on earth, they insinuate the most dangerous errors. The fact that they state some truths and are able at times to foretell future events gives to their statements an appearance of reliability. Appearance of reliability. Let me give you an illustration of an appearance of reliability. You're home in the evening, and the telephone rings. There's a man at the other end of the phone, and he tells you, "My name is Tom Moen, and I'm not calling to sell you anything, but I work for a research company. And I just want to share something with you so that you can know about our research. I was just calling to let you know that AT&T stock is going to go up in the next couple of weeks. And I don't want you to buy anything. I don't want you to invest in anything right now. I just wanted you to know that. Would you please write that down?" And so you're curious, well, why would Tom Moen call me and tell me about AT&T stock going up? And you begin to watch the paper. And sure enough, over the next few days, AT&T stock goes up, and it continues to go up. That's going pretty good, and you're thinking, I should have bought some of that AT&T stock. I would have made some money. And you're thinking about that. Anybody here not like to make money? I don't see any hands up. We all like to make money. So about 2 weeks later, you're home in the evening, and the phone rings again. And it's your friend Tom Moen. He says, "Did you watch the papers? Did you see that AT&T went up? We do such marvelous research. And I just want to let you know now to put Ford Motor Company on your watch list because that stock's going to go down in the next couple of weeks. It's going to go down. And I just wanted you to know that tidbit. And of course, I don't want you to do anything now. But I just want you to know the accuracy of our research. We spend a lot of money on research, and we just want you to know about us. Goodbye." So now you're really curious, and you're watching the paper. You're looking at Ford Motor Company. Well, that guy was right about A&T. AT&T, can he be right about Ford Motor Company? Well, you watch, and the Ford Motor Company stock starts to go down. It starts to go down, and it starts to go down. So a couple weeks later, you're home in the evening, and the phone rings again. The man says, "This is Tom Moen again. What did you think of that research? We told you AT&T was going up. We told you Ford Motor Company is going down. Well, I'm calling to tell you today that we have it on good authority that Motorola is going to go up. It's going to go sky high. How much do you want to buy? And so you write out your check for however much to his brokerage house because they know. And then you find out later that you didn't buy any Motorola stock. You gave your check to a swindler, and you're out all that money. But how did he know? How did he do that? How was he so accurate? Well, I'll tell you what he did. He called 100 people, and he told 50 people that AT&T was going to go up, and he told 50 people that AT&T was going to go down. And when AT&T went up, he threw away the list of the 50 people that he told it was going to go down, and he told 25 people that Ford Motor Company stock was going to go up. And he told 25 people that Ford Motor Company stock was going to go down. And so when it went down, he had a sucker list of 25 people. And if he could get 10 or 15 of them to send him money, he could cash those checks and run off to who knows where. And they were taken in. Well, I tell you, the devil doesn't care which way you're deceived. He doesn't care how many lies he has to tell you. And I can tell you, he will sing and shout the victory over all those poor souls who he has dragged into perdition with him. Misery loves company, and Satan knows his time is short. But he'd like to take you with him. But I have news for you. I don't want him to take you. Our Lord Jesus Christ came and paid the debt of all your sins. So you have a ticket to glory. Just think about that. You have that ticket to glory, all bought and paid for. What about that? There's nothing deceptive about that. There's nothing wrong about that. But you have someone that wants to swindle you out of your ticket. He would just love to deceive you. I mentioned my sister during the Kids of the Kingdom. She worked for years as a process server for the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office in Bonneville, in Idaho Falls, Idaho. And then she got married to her second husband, and he works with something called nuclear power. And he makes sure that the reactors run. He has his experience from the U.S. Navy where he ran the reactors on submarines. And when they got married, she gave up working, but they moved to Illinois where she didn't know a soul. And she wanted something to do. So she was very good with secretarial skills. She had been the secretary to Sheriff Ackerman there in Bonneville County before she worked in the civil process unit. But she went to work at an attorney's office. And she lasted about 4 weeks. And she finally told those attorneys, I can't work here. I can't work for you. You have these people come in to get advice. And you tell them whatever's going to make money in your pocket. And you don't care what you do for them. And when they walk out the door, you give each other high fives and say, man, are they stupid. Well, the devil is in league with men like that. He doesn't have your good at heart. He may entice you with things that feel good, taste good. But in the end, it isn't wise. In finishing, I want to read from Hebrews 11. A lot of you know Hebrews 11 is the faith chapter. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But I want to read Hebrews 11. Hebrews 11. Let me get to it here. Hebrews 11, verse 6. But without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Diligently seek God. He won't let you down. This time, let's open our hymnals to hymn number 612. This is our marching orders. I'd like to invite everyone to stand together with me as we sing this hymn.